welcome back to Grisaia. I'm reading more, even with this weird microphone. Come on. Really? You're gonna kill another cat? Oh, I gotta know where they're going now. I have to pay the cat, but he drives off without accepting a dime. What are we doing next? Probably wanted to bid the quickest possible farewell to his eerie clients and their bloodstained cat corpse.
ジョー強いんだ。頭もいいし、だからそんなことが言えるけど、私はバカだから考えたってわかんないよ。
Michiru hugs the cat's body tightly, showing no intention of letting go anytime soon. She seems to have accepted the reality of its death, but clearly has no idea how to cope with it. That's not a stuffed animal in your arms. You can't hold on to it forever.
わかってる。
Let me take the cat. I won't treat him badly. After a long internal debate, Michiru finally hands me the cat. Thanks to the summer heat, fluid has already begun to ooze out of its butt, but the girl's clothes are soiled. Even so, she pets his head numerous times, clearly reluctant to part. I decide it's probably best to let her be alone for a while. After respectfully dealing with the cat's body, I return to my room and take a shower. The cat died. From an objective point of view, a stray cat was hit by a car. Nothing more, nothing less. In the animal shelters, abandoned pets and feral strays are disposed of in the tens of thousands every year. To the world at large, the death of that cat is essentially meaningless. But a precious fragment of Michiru's world was stolen away before her very eyes. From that perspective, we're clearly facing a gravely serious situation. I gave Michiru a little time to herself. She may have managed to calm down a bit by now. I head to the girl's room to check up on her. It's me. I'm coming in. There's no answer. I open the door immediately, but pause for a moment before entering as if expecting the cat to suddenly poke its head into the gap. This despite the fact that I disposed of his body only a few minutes ago. Ridiculous. Again with the darkness. Let's start by making things a little less. Halfway through the sentence, my breath catches in my throat. Michiru is crumpled awkwardly on the floor, almost as if she's fallen out of the bed. There's a fine white froth around her mouth. Numerous containers of maroon candy lie scattered on the ground around her. I've been slightly suspicious about these for some time now, but it's now obvious they're in fact some kind of medication. An overdose, is it? Lovely. I grab one of the lozenges from the floor and pop it in my mouth. The medicine quickly dissolves when I chew, leaving a powdery substance. I immediately spit it out and wet my tongue with a sleeve. Not a particularly strong drug, but that doesn't make an overdose any less dangerous. Michiru, open your mouth. I push Michiru up to a sitting position and wrench open her mouth with my fingers, pulling out a thick, gooey lump of half-melted lozenges. Pipe down. Getting your stomach pumped hurts like you know. Let's try and deal with this here. The area around her mouth coated with sticky saliva, Michiru breaks down in tears. Did a stupid thing just now. Expect a proper scolding later. There's no need to try and bear everything all by yourself. Understood? I'm here. Well, this is the second visual novel I've read that killed a cat. Sorry, Chizuru.
ええ、なんとか学園内で処置したけど、これは大問題よ。
I'm aware. I'll repay you for this soon.
そんなこと言ってるんじゃなくて、もう今後は手は貸せませんからね。
It's alright, Michiru. You can sleep a little longer.
私は夢を見ていた。そこは穏やかで何の問題もなかった。でもすぐに夢から覚めることも分かっていた。だから怖かった。
Maybe she just wanted to avert her eyes from reality for a brief moment. Maybe she wanted to make a permanent escape from this claustrophobic box. Nobody knows Michiru's reasons. I can speculate endlessly, but it won't get me any closer to a definitive answer. It might even be that the girl herself has no real explanation. Self-destructive behavior isn't going to change the world around you. Your pain won't make time run backward. Reality isn't going anywhere. Chizuru told our classmates that Michiru had collapsed from anemia. Letting them know about a suicide attempt would without a doubt have created a counterproductive uproar. At this rate, the girl's going to end up shifting from a pseudo-tsundere to a sickly character.
Oh, おはよ
Morning, how are you feeling?
う。別に大丈夫。何の問題もないよ。
After a few days of rest, Michiru's returned to her normal routine. At a glance, it's hard to believe she might have deliberately attempted to end her own life. The others were fairly worried, but when Michiru brought out the normal tsundere song and dance, they apparently decided she was completely back to normal. But I think otherwise. The girl's absolutely not the same. If anything, she seems like an entirely different person. To be perfectly frank, she looks like a lifeless doll acting out a fictional character.
何よ、そんなに見ないでよね。
Right, sorry.
ところでね、私、折り合いをつけたのよ。
But today, Michiru strikes up a conversation from her end. After the incident, we've had only the briefest of interactions, so this comes as something of a surprise. Oh, what kind of compromise?
もう決めたの。私には楽しいことなんて必要ないって何も望まない。それで全てが解決じゃない？
That doesn't strike me as much of a solution. It's like closing your eyes and covering your ears when the debt collector knocks on your door. Who's going to pay the bill in your place?
そんなんじゃない。とにかく、もう何も必要ない。だからユージ、あんたは自由に生きていいわよ。
What's that supposed to mean?
私を心配しなくていいってこと。私に構わなくていいわ。 私のことで煩わされることがなくなるってわけ。嬉しいでしょ。
I don't remember changing your diapers, and if I thought you were a nuisance, I'd say so. What are you even talking about, woman?
本当は分かってるの。だからそんな風に優しく言わなくても大丈夫。風見さん、みちる様、おはようございます。
When Sachi appears, Michiru abruptly changes her expression and hurls out an energetic greeting.
あら、サチ、今日もメイド全開ね。もちろんです。皆様のメイドですから。みちる様もツンデレ全開ですか？当たり前よ。当たり前なんかじゃないんだからね。おやおや、相変わらず見当外れのツンデレ感ですね。うふふ。でしょ？まあそんなに褒めなくてもいいけどね。うふふ。
Was that really flattering?
褒めているというよりは現状報告という感じでしょうか。けなしてはいません。事実なので。ほら、ユージ、けなしてないって言ってるわよ。ってことは褒められてるってこ。みちる様、大丈夫ですか？ってことね。何が？大丈夫よ。顔色が冴えないようですが、また貧血ですか？寒い日のプールから上がった子供のように唇が紫ですよ。ふふん、大丈夫よ。これぐらいなんてことないの。ビタミンばっかりとってて、部活にも鉄分を忘れてたわね。レバーをご用意しましょうか。うん、そのうちよろしくね。もちろんです。それでは失礼させていただきます。
Michiru, my friend, try not to push yourself.
別に無理なんてしてないけど。でもそうね。ちょっと休んでくる。
I think that would be wise. Michiru shuts herself up in her room for several hours, only emerging that evening. Her face is slightly less pallid, but she's still carrying herself a little oddly. Hey, managed to calm down a little?
別に最初から落ち着いてるし、そもそも。お兄ちゃん、チルチル。なんで制服着てるのよさ。もう夏休みなのよ。
Michiru starts in surprise at Makina's words. Seems to have only just realized that her choice of clothes is somewhat unusual for this time of year. I'd made a tactful decision to not comment on the matter, but Makina's a free spirit, unbound by such concerns. Michiru may be making a decent effort to hide it, but she's in a disturbed, unstable frame of mind. The girl pretty clearly isn't capable of paying attention to her clothing right now.
それはだってマキナだって着てるじゃないのよ。私は学校がなくてもたまに制服着るのよさ。趣味で。だったら私だって趣味だもん。まあまあ2人とも。でみちる、ちゃんと元気でやってるの？もちろんよ。ちょうど今トライアスロンから帰ってきたとこ。冗談でしょ。なんで病み上がりで鉄人レース出ちゃうかな。 あんたたちが心配しないようにみちる様健在ってところをアピっとかないとね。
なるほどな。でもそんなアピリはどうでもいいのよ。ねえねえお兄ちゃん、外で影踏みして遊ぼうなのよさ。お天気いいし、これはもう踏みまくれんぞ。
What?
マキナってばね、ユージと影踏みしたいって聞かないのよ。
Did you have to describe it like that?
一人で練習するって言ってシャドーボクシングならぬシャドー影踏みまでして、なんだかもうよくわかんない感じになっちゃってね。
Oh, a lot of shadows outside today.
そうなのよさ。シャドウで影を踏むなんて。ああ、言葉にもてあそばれてる感じがして混乱するのよ。
I see. Well, I wouldn't really mind, but before answering, I glance at Michiru out of the corner of my eye. There's a clearly unhappy expression on her face, and she's restlessly grinding her foot against the floor. Considering that tough act this afternoon about setting me free or whatever, she looks distinctly jealous over me holding a mere conversation with Makina. Alright, I'll play once you become a true expert at tagging shadows. Until then, content yourself with your image training.
意地悪。でも分かったのよさ。想像力をフルに使ってシャドウするのよさ。ふみふみ。ああ、集中しすぎて本当に影が見えてきた。
I'm pretty sure that's just your shadow.
あ、そっか。これ普通に影じゃん。危ねえ、騙されるとこだった。
ちょっと私そこの空き部屋で休んでくるわね。あ、具合悪いの？大丈夫？平気よ。心配はご無用。なんか今発音変じゃなかった？ゴム？ゴム？それじゃあね。
松島さん、この前渡せなかった6枚の。
ごめんね由美子、その話はまた今度。
6枚。
みちるってばまだ完全に体調が戻ってないみたいね。ねえユージ、様子見に行った方がいいんじゃない？
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. I'll go. Michiru, are you alright? Answer me. You don't look so hot after all, Michiru. Let's...
ちょっと来て。
Michiru grabs my wrist and unceremoniously drags me into the unoccupied room. What's wrong? The others are worried, you know.
やっぱりダメかもしれない。
Oh, you're talking in the background too. Neat. Michiru mumbles a spectacularly inadequate explanation in a tear-choked voice. I honestly don't know what she's trying to say.
したい。
To do what? If you have something to say, then say it.
恋人ごっこでいいからキスしたい。
Say what? What is this girl thinking? I stop by out of concern for her physical well-being, and she drags me in here for this, of all things? I don't understand you. First you go on about how you don't want anything from me anymore, and now you're demanding kisses.
ごめんなさい。でも私本当は怖くて仕方ないの。だからお願い またごっこして。嘘でもそれで安心できると思うから。
Is playing pretend really going to satisfy you?
わかんないけど、最後までしてくれたら少しは。
All the way? What's that supposed to mean? Michiru looks at me with an earnest expression and pleads her case.
お願い、私胸が苦しいの。このままじゃダメになっちゃうかもしれない。だから私がここにいてもいい理由が欲しい。私のこと必要だって思ってほしい。
I decline. You're just in a temporary state of mental agitation. Sorry, but I don't make a habit of playing with distraught women.
混乱してないもん。いつもと同じだもん。
You sure as heck don't look like it.
いいからしなさいよね。ほらね。
I can't help but let out a little tactless laughter. I guess the girl's trying to demonstrate she's the same as always, by means of this incredibly strange tsundere act. But seriously...
なんで笑うのよ。早くごっこしなさい。恋人ごっこ。
Honestly, you really are an idiot.
うるさい。するのしないの。はっきりしてよね。
Alright, since you insist that strongly, I'll play along. But is this really going to accomplish anything?
わからな
I'm
い。
getting a little emotional.
わからな
actually.
いけど、そうしたらユージにいろいろ話す勇気が出ると思うし、安心する。
A lot of stuff, is it? Well, whatever, that works. I do have a lot of things I want to ask you. I pull Michiru close to me and bring my face to hers. Poor girl. When our lips touch lightly, a soft moan escapes from the corner of her mouth. Just as requested, I repeat gentle, affectionate kisses of the sort a loving couple might share. Something wrong? Your breathing seems to have gotten rough all of a sudden.
そんなわけないでしょ。バカ。
Still trying to pull the tsundere act, huh? In that case... As I press my lips against Michiru's more strongly than before, I feel her body go stiff as a board.
やめて。
You said to go all the way, didn't you? I really will stop if that's what you want. But she quickly catches the sleeve of my shirt to halt my retreat.
やめないでよ。
Didn't you just tell me to cut it out?
あれはそうだけど違うの。わかってよ。
I see. In that case, next time I won't stop even if you ask me to.
それでいいと思う。もういいからあんまりいろいろ言わないでよね。
The girl's tough tone fades in and out at random, feeling nervous, it would seem. Maybe a slightly different approach is called for. Don't make me do all the work, Michiru. Try starting a kiss yourself for once.
Eh?
Compared to me kissing you unilaterally, a give and take exchange would be more couple-like, don't you think?
仕方ないからしてあげるわよ。特別なんだからね。
Right. I bring my face toward Michiru's and stop just as my lips are about to make contact with hers. cheeks flush a vivid shade of red. Seems she's taken the hint. After a hesitant moment where her eyes flit back and forth, Michiru softly touches her lips to mine, lightly sucks against my mouth, then retreats. Before she has a chance to turn her face aside in embarrassment, I fall and kiss her in return. We press our lips together again and again, alternating attack and defense. Michiru.
ユージ、ずっとこうしたかった。
Whenever our mouths part for a moment, Michiru looks up at me with moist eyes. I reach out to stroke her cheek, then gently wrap my arm around her shoulder and pull her closer. Before I know it, Michiru's fallen asleep in my arms, but we can't exactly lie around here all day. I lift the girl onto my back and head for her room. Yeah, this is a very emotional route. I wait at Michiru's bedside as she sleeps, occupying myself with a book. I feel a little exasperated at myself for reading at a time like this, but it's the surest method I have of regaining emotional balance. It's not like I'm an indifferent robot. Sleeping with Michiru has complicated my feelings more than a little. When I look up from the book for the first time in a while, the girl's awake and watching me quietly. I ask if she's feeling alright, prompting her quiet ignorance. What? Did I knock you against something on the way up here?
そうじゃないよ。わかるでしょ。
Sorry about that.
なんで謝るの？嬉しかったよ。ありがとう。
As she speaks, Michiru offers me a sincere smile for the first time in a while. Alright then, we're done playing make-believe for the moment, so why don't you tell me what you've been hiding? I'll hear you out.
Mm. どこから話したらいいか自分でもよくわからないんだけど。
I lower my paper back to the floor, shifting my attention to Michiru's story. There's another me inside me. I'm not playing with words or anything. It really is a completely different person. My body doesn't belong to me alone. That really scares me, but it's thanks to her that I'm even alive today. She knows everything about me, but I know nothing about her. In that case, which of us has the better claim to be the real me? I was born into a relatively wealthy family. My parents valued me highly, all the more so because I was their only child. They provided me with an excellent education, hoping to raise me into a worthy daughter, one they could show off with pride. Although I was still a child, no, maybe it's because I was still a child. They brought countless tutors to our home to pack knowledge into my head, like travelers stuffing all their luggage into one tiny, overburdened suitcase. The tutors were all excellent in their fields, and they all charged heavily for their lessons. After studying with them, even the most uncooperative and dim-witted of children could be safely sent off into the world. But I guess I was sort of a special case. It took a lot of time and trouble for me to learn the simplest things. When shown a perfectly clear example, then told, "Now you try, please," I couldn't even imitate my tutors properly. I understood what I needed to do, but when I tried to put that knowledge into practice, my voice would quake and my throat would go dry. Even though I wasn't being threatened in any way, tears would come to my eyes. Piano and violin, arithmetic and the English alphabet, it was all the same, no matter what the subject. When I hesitated, my tutors would say, "You didn't understand, I'll do it one more time," and repeat the example faster than before, and then they would glare at me with eyes that said, "Get it right already." That really scared me. My body would freeze up entirely, my clothes would grow damp with sweat. By the time my molars began to chatter against each other, I could no longer muster the strength to even try. The tutor would scowl down at me, looking ready to burst into angry shouting at any moment. The heavier their gazes weighed on me, the less I could move or think. Time crawled past in empty silence. In the end, the tutor would simply sigh in exasperation and leave the room. It wasn't uncommon for my lessons to end with nothing more than that. Dejected and humiliated, I could only reflect on my own uselessness, and as I stood in my quiet room, stock still and alone, eventually I would hear an angry voice from outside.
うちの娘が成長しないのはお前が無能だからじゃないのか。
Again and again, violent words rattled against my window pane like fat drops of icy rain. I would cover my ears and wait for the storm to pass. It tended to go on for quite some time. When the shouting finally ended and silence returned, my father would come to my room and push open the door.
みちる、どうした？先生に遠慮することはないんだぞ。お前はパパとママの子だ。やればできるんだからね。あの無能どもにはお前のいいところをちゃんと伸ばせるようにとしっかり言ってやったからな。今度からは頑張るんだぞ。よし、できるな。そうだ、欲しいものはあるか？何でも買ってやるぞ。
My dad was nice to me. It was hard to believe he was the same person who had been shouting at the teacher just a few minutes ago. When he held me against his broad, powerful chest, I smelled cigarettes and women's perfume, never the same brand twice. It was comfortable, but also a little scary. I've got to do better next time. I can't let Daddy and Mommy down. That night, I knelt by the window, joined my small hands together, and prayed to the stars.
神様、私がちゃんと習い事やお勉強ができるようにしっかり見守っていてください。
The next day was my regular music lesson. I sat perched quietly in front of a piano that had been shipped overseas from Hamburg, waiting for the teacher to arrive. In that moment, if somebody had snuck up and hit the keyboard, I might have tumbled right off the bench. My anxiety and fear must have shown in my face. When my tutor finally arrived, she closed the door carefully behind her and immediately came to my side.
あなたはね、本当にダメで落ちこぼれでバカなのよ。わかってる？
She spoke in a very gentle voice, so for a moment the sentence didn't really register, but all too soon I realized that she had spoken awful, terrifying words.
さあ言ってごらんなさい。私は落ちこぼれのダメ。
The tutor struck me with a thin, stiff rod. The stinging pain of the blow lingered like a nasty paper cut.
あなた日本語がわからないの？誰がそんな返事をなさいって言います？さあ言ってごらん。あなたのせいで私がお父様に無能だと言う。あなたが全部悪いんでしょ？あなたの責任なのよ。はい。私は落ちこぼれでバカのダメな人間です。
I didn't want to say it. Even a child could understand how cruel those words were, but I was so terrified of being struck again that I squeezed them out anyway.
私は落ちこぼれで。そうね。よくできたわね。褒めてあげましょうね。はい。そうそう。先生が指導したところ、お父様に見せたらダメよ。もしそんなことしたら殺しますからね。
I don't think she could have been serious, but my entire body shrunk in fear. I was so terrified that I couldn't answer, and since I didn't respond, she hit me again. From that day on, violence came to be known as discipline.
いいかね。ではレッスンしましょう。
はい。
I had numerous tutors, but after that day, it wasn't long before every one of them began to discipline me in the same way. That female tutor might have told the others that I wouldn't tattle to my parents, no matter what they did to me. Their discipline grew more refined with time, developing into a kind of art. They found ways to cause me pain without leaving telltale marks behind. Skillfully and thoroughly, they broke me in mind and body. It became impossible for me to look people in the eyes when I spoke. I was never good at holding lengthy conversations, but my responses grew shorter with every passing day. By the end, I was barely speaking at all. Even then, my suffering might have been slightly meaningful if those Spartan lessons had produced results, but no matter how hard I tried to please my tormentors, it never improved my evaluations. My father dismissed the tutors in ones and twos over my terrible results until none remained. They cursed me to my face before they went. Some even spat onto the floor of my room before stalking out.
Michiru? 何か嫌なことはあったかい？
何も。
そうか。まあ、勉強や習い事なんてできなくていいさ。健康に育ってくれれば、それだけでパパは満足だぞ。
But I was unable to fulfill even that modest hope. On my walks around the garden, I would sometimes find myself painfully short of breath, clutching my throbbing chest. My parents grew concerned. Eventually, they brought me to a big hospital for an examination. And there, I was diagnosed with a serious heart disease. The doctor's verdict: continuing to lead a normal life outside of the hospital would necessitate significant restrictions on my activities. From now on, I'd have to refrain from vigorous exercise.
穏やかに無理をせず過ごしなさい。そうでないと取り返しのつかないことになるよ。
I couldn't study or play the piano. I was never much of an athlete. Even talking with people was a struggle. And now, I'd become an invalid who couldn't even live a normal life. As I watched my parents' faces fill with disappointment, a thought occurred to me. Oh, look at that. My tutors were right all along. They told me I was a stupid, useless person who didn't even deserve to live. And they weren't wrong. They must have said it hundreds of times. Why didn't I figure this out earlier? Of course they beat me. It's only natural to treat garbage like garbage. Thinking that way made me feel a little better. I was stupid to even try to answer my parents' expectations. I wasn't cut out for that from the start. The thought freed me from my burdens. It also wiped away the meaning of my existence. Soon, my parents had lost all hope in me and devoted their nights to producing a new child. Their previously frequent visits to my room grew rare, and the time I spent alone increased. My room was always cold. I kept the curtains shut throughout the day. Little by little, I felt myself slipping away from the world outside. Nothing I did turned out right, but of course it didn't. I was defective from the start. Clumsy and awkward as I was, I soon found the one and only thing I was good at. Letting time roll past in empty, uneventful silence. I would sit quietly in the corner of my room, not budging a millimeter all day, simply drawing breath. That alone became something of a specialty of mine. Even a mollusk at the bottom of the sea probably couldn't beat me at staying still. That was all I had left to be proud of. I continued to live like a clam, but biologically speaking, I was a human being. My body grew larger little by little, and in time I stopped being a child. I was no longer allowed to shut myself up in my room doing nothing. I had to go to a place called school. The little mermaid who lived at the bottom of the sea couldn't speak the human tongue very well. By the same token, I couldn't really communicate with the other students. It didn't help that I was a clam, not a beautiful princess. Everyone around me could live a normal life. I envied them from the bottom of my heart. I couldn't study or make friends. Moving around a little would get my heart screaming with pain. Just keeping myself breathing was about all I could manage. At first, a number of my classmates made an effort to draw me out of my solitude, but I didn't know what to say to them. Most of the time, I just nodded my head and mumbled, "Yeah," with a stiff expression on my face. Inevitably, the people who approached me gradually gave up, and eventually the class came to operate as if I wasn't there. That was kind of a relief in a way. Nobody expected anything from me, so I couldn't disappoint anyone. It was as though I was made of air. Even in school, I could return to my life as a clam. I thought that was just fine, not bad at all. My parents made sure I went to school regularly, probably thinking I'd at least have to communicate with other people there, but it wasn't rare for me to go an entire day without speaking a single word. Even when the teacher took attendance, they just glanced in my direction, not bothering to call my name. As my free time increased, I began to think pretty regularly about the point of my own existence, or rather, the pointlessness. Why was I going to school? Why was I even alive? I considered those questions at some length. Watching from afar as my classmates laughed together and chatted enthusiastically about television, sometimes I would have to fight down the urge to burst into tears. They were so close, but I was separated from them by an insurmountable wall. Even a trash can is useful to others. I was just taking up space. Why was I born in the first place? My parents had given me a cell phone, saying I'd probably need it as a student. There wasn't a single message or call recorded in the history log. The memory was clean, pure white. That phone must have been lighter than anyone else's. It was empty inside. Unless I kept a firm grip on it, it'd probably float up into the air, get pecked at by some passing bird, and disappear with a pop. I went to die. In the end, that was my only conclusion. A year passed in that school, then two, and that was my only constant rock of truth. On the deserted rooftop of the school building, looking up into the blue sky that stretched out over the road to school, I longed for death. I simply didn't understand the point of continuing to breathe. Living every day as a non-entity is something like walking on an icy road in bare feet. At first it's scary, but soon enough your nerves are paralyzed. You feel nothing at all. A good while later, when you realize this might be pretty bad, it's already far too late. There's nowhere to go from here. There's nothing to be done. You live every day of your life frozen to the ground, choking on bitter, cold air. Might as well just die then. With that thought in mind, I began to head up to the roof during every recess period. Up there, the only thing separating this world from the next was a waist-high steel fence. Someday I'll cross over that fence and become free. Someday I'll escape into nothingness. Comforted by those thoughts, I waited patiently for the right timing. I waited for someone, God or whoever else, to send a sign just for me. I'd wrap my arms around my knees and sit, telling myself maybe today would be the day. Maybe today the clouds would part for a ray of light, and a voice from above would say, "Come, it's time." I would stare closely at the trains barreling past the station, wondering if the sign might flash past in the window of a carriage. But instead, I just sat by myself on that roof, No matter how long and patiently I waited, I never saw any signals. Nobody whispered the words in my ear. In the end, I was all alone, just like I was everywhere else. Every place was the same to me. I was in the corner of the room where I'd been beaten terribly. I was deep at the bottom of the sea, where no light could reach me. I was at the end of the world, surrounded on all sides by solid walls of stone. God must have been busy with something else. Otherwise, why wouldn't he fly over to me and speak the words? One day, when I went to the rooftop as usual, I found a girl who had just in that very moment crossed over the fence. She was standing boldly on the very edge of the building, staring straight ahead. And when I saw her, one powerful thought filled my mind. It's not fair. After all my anguished internal debating, all my suffering, all my waiting, I couldn't get myself over that fence. Why did this girl get to make it look so easy? That girl was going to kill herself. She was going to leap off the roof, fall onto the concrete below, and end her life. It was obvious enough from the way she stood there, straddling the border between roof and sky, arms outstretched like wings to catch the wind, seemed almost to be enjoying herself. It wasn't the sort of pose you could make if you cared about your own life. Anyway, it wasn't fair. Why did she get to die when I had to live? I didn't have the first idea who she was, but it just wasn't fair. I was trying to shout as loudly as I could, but what came out of my mouth was a weak, spiritless sound, like the rasping of a broken down old accordion.
ずるいよ。死んだら嫌だよ。
It probably didn't help that I wasn't used to conversation, but my voice just wasn't coming out right. The girl quietly stared down at the ground far below, not even noticing my presence behind her. She seemed to be looking for the exact moment to jump. Maybe God had already given her the signal.
ねえ、ずるいってば。ダメなの。
I called out again and again, but she didn't seem to hear. Maybe I no longer even existed in this world. Maybe I'd slipped into some alternate plane of existence long ago and was just peeking into this world through an interdimensional one-way mirror. She ignored me so completely that it seemed possible.
ねえ、聞いてよ。聞いてよ。
I called out to her, my voice choked with tears, but even then she didn't turn around.
よし、せーので行くか。
ねえ、聞いてよ。
The girl's body went into spasms of shock. She looked like a wild animal with its fur standing on end.
危な！びっくりした。落ちるとこだった。
And then at long last she timidly turned around to face me.
誰？
ねえ、聞いてよ。
なんで泣いてるの？っていうか、いつからいたの？
ずるい。死ぬとかずるい。
ずるい？どういうこと？
My tear-stained face must have been a real sight. The girl lifted herself over the fence and returned to the side. She was wearing the same uniform as me. Unsurprisingly, she was clearly from my school.
あんた、すっごいひどい顔してる。拭いたら？
She handed me her handkerchief, and I dried my tears. Nothing like that had ever happened to me before. It was embarrassing, but it made me sort of happy. I didn't really know what to do next.
で、何？用？
That was kind of a hard question, actually. I just didn't want her to die. And it's not like I was about to lecture her on treasuring her life or anything. I was just scared by the thought of someone escaping this world while I was still hesitating on the edge.
何？
The girl watched me as if observing some rare species of animal. I didn't have the first idea where to begin or how to explain myself, so after thinking it over for quite some time, I chose the simplest option.
じめまして。松島みちるです。
このタイミングで挨拶、しかもそれだけ。終わり？それを言うためだけに
Screwed up after all, huh? Guess I can't even manage a normal conversation anymore. The thought made me genuinely sad. I couldn't find my usual numb indifference. It felt like a harsh reminder that I didn't belong in this world any longer. Watching as I slumped my shoulders dejectedly, the girl burst into laughter, and although I didn't have any real evidence either way, I didn't feel like she was mocking me. It was relieved, happy laughter, the sort of laughter I hadn't heard in a long time.
何それ、あなた変な人ね。
I wasn't sure what to do, so I just stood there quietly as she laughed and laughed. But no matter how patiently I waited, she just wouldn't stop. Much the opposite. After a while, she threw herself down on the ground and began to roll around, her roars of amusement even louder than before.
おかしい、変なの。怖かった。すっごい怖かった。何事かと思った。っていうか死ぬかと思った。
Watching her rolling around like that started to get me in a kind of silly mood myself. The moment I noticed a little giggle slipping out of my mouth, the dam seemed to break. I began laughing so loudly I surprised myself.
笑ってる。何それ。
The two of us laughed for a very, very long time. Long enough that the color of the sky changed above us. Long enough that I could almost believe whole seasons had passed by. When her laughter finally came to an end, the girl rose shakily to her feet, both hands clutching her belly. She opened her mouth to speak, but at first could only manage a few high-pitched little giggles. So that was it after all. The girl had been planning to die. I knew that much from the start, but when she came out and said it so bluntly, I was still slightly taken aback.
バカらしい。ああ、笑えた。こうなるとあなた、命の恩人。
命の恩人
でしょ？うん。ありがとう。
I didn't deserve to be thanked by anyone. Why was she saying this to me?
むしろなぜ泣く？よしよし、落ち着け落ち着け。どう
The girl wrapped a hand around my neck and drew me close. After briefly petting my head, she hugged me tightly against her.
あなたは本当に変な子だね。でもそういう子嫌いじゃないぞ。とか言ったりしてな。
Her chest had a sweet, milky odor. I'd never smelled another girl's body like this before. I didn't know what to do. About anything, really. It was all too much. My mind just couldn't keep up.
そうだな。友達になろうか。うん、友達になろう。何しろ命の恩人だもんね。これはもう親友だな、むしろ。そうだよ、親友だよ。親友じゃん？よろしくね、親友。よ
ろしくお願いします。
I had convinced myself there was no place for me in this world, but when I felt the life pulsing in her chest, I found myself able to breathe easily again. She smelled sweet, and her body was soft and warm. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been so close to another person. Contact with other people had always seemed so scary, and it really was scary to be honest, but at the same time, how could I put this? More than anything else, it felt like someone was gently tickling my heart. I returned home that day feeling as if I'd been reborn. Probably because of my unusually cheerful expression, my parents struck up a conversation with me for the first time in a while. I wasn't able to explain very well, but I did tell them I'd gotten to know somebody at school. I didn't say I made a friend, let alone a best friend. After all, there was still a chance it had all been a delusion on my part. Maybe tomorrow everything would be right back to the way it was. That would be way too sad, right? Better not to get my hopes up. My parents said, I see, good for you, mixed emotions on their faces. Not that it bothered me much. That night, I ate my dinner slightly earlier than usual and slipped into bed slightly before my bedtime. For once, I actually wanted tomorrow to arrive a little faster. But in school the next day, I found everything the same. It wasn't like I had changed after all. I was still just myself. Nobody in my class even tried to talk to me. That morning, I thought I might be able to keep a bit of a smile on my face, but in the end, my expression was gloomier than ever. Maybe that girl I met the day before was a sign from God, a little cosmic meddling to keep me from killing myself at the wrong time. Could have just said so from the start then. I nearly misunderstood, nearly thought I'd found some place where I belonged. Nearly thought it was okay for me to live, nearly started thinking like a normal person. That was a close one. I almost forgot what my tutors taught me so thoroughly. Yeah, that had to be it. I didn't have a best friend. That was all a dream. Dreams aren't worth it, are they? You end up feeling really tired when you wake up. After school, I stood for my seat before anyone else and beelined for the exit. For now, I just wanted to get out of that place, but the rooftop had become frightening, so I couldn't go back there. I wanted to run away, but I couldn't figure out where to go. All I knew was that I didn't want to be where I was. When I slid open the door and dashed out into the hallway, there was a harsh thump and everything went black for a moment. In my haste, I'd run headlong into someone.
ごめんなさい。
Somehow squeezing out the words, I turned to run, but before I could take another step, someone firmly seized me by the back of my uniform. I reflexively dropped my bag and shielded my head against the blow that would follow. This was a deeply ingrained habit from my childhood. When the tutors hit my head strongly, the nausea and dizziness would sometimes last for hours. If nothing else, I wanted to avoid that. But the violence I feared didn't arrive. On the contrary, my captor bent down and picked up the bag I'd thrown to the ground.
相変わらず変な人だね、松島みちる。
It was the first time in a while somebody had bothered to call me that. A silly thought flashed through my head. Oh, so that's what my name sounds like.
ねえ、お腹空いたからどむんない？おごるから。
ど、なる？
In front of my eyes was the girl from my dream. I was definitely awake, but somehow I was dreaming.
断ったりしないよね。親友だもんね。この後何か用事でもあるの？
I couldn't get myself to speak properly, so I shook my head vigorously from left to right. No, nothing at all. And I kept right on doing it, until at last the girl reached out and caught my cheeks in her hands to hold me still.
わかったわかった。それじゃあ、行こう。お腹空いちゃった。
She led me by the hand, and for the first time in my life I entered a so-called fast food restaurant. The complicated menu and colorful photographs left me lightheaded, and I didn't have the first idea how to order. After stewing in confusion and panic for a long while, I tugged on her sleeve.
あなた、本当にこういうところ初めてなの？
I quietly nodded my head. She just watched me for a moment, then laughed in amusement. A little later, a small tray sat on our surprisingly cramped little table, bearing the hamburger and fries the girl ordered for me. It felt like she was really close. Eating a meal with my face so near to someone else's made me kind of nervous. I could feel my stomach turning. What was I gonna do if I threw up?
あなた隣のクラスだったんだね。こんなに面白い子がいるなんて全然知らなかった。ん？どうかした？
これ写真と全然違う。ぺたんこ。
ハンバーガー？本当に？
面白い。
面白い。そうだ、あなたクラスメートになんて呼ばれ？
私何か。
そう言われてる。しかも悪口、幽霊って呼ばれてんの。笑っちゃうでしょ。なんでよって思ったから、そんなこと言うのよしなさいって言っておいたわよ。
She chattered happily on, swinging a fry back and forth. I had no idea how to respond. I mean, I was surprised to know they bothered to badmouth me, but I was even more shocked she told them to stop. Why was this person being so nice to me?
しかもあなたお嬢らしいじゃん。だからってファーストフード初めてってちょっと浮世離れしすぎじゃない？
お嬢。
そう、お嬢。ところでさ、携帯ある？赤外線やろうよ、赤外線。わかった。それは今度にしよう。ひとまず今日は食べなさい食べなさい。ここは私のおごりだから。そのぺったんこたーんとお食べ。どうせ私にはこれぐらいしかおごれないんだし。
I picked up the miserably flat little hamburger from its bed of wrapping paper and took a large bite. To my surprise, a strong and vibrant flavor instantly filled my mouth. It might not have looked anything like the photo, but it actually tasted really good.
どうだ、美味しいじゃろ？
美味しい。
なんで泣いてんの？謎なんだけど。美味しくて泣いてんの？それは大げさでしょ。ゾウさんも大喜びだな、こりゃ。
The hamburger was warm, the girl in front of me was kind, and I couldn't stop crying. Not surprisingly, she looked a little astounded, but even so, she laughed. No matter what I did, she'd laugh. After that, she started coming by every day after school, inviting me along to all sorts of different places. I guess she must have found my complete cluelessness kind of entertaining. One day it was karaoke, the next an arcade. The day after that, something else entirely. I got to see a lot of new places and experienced a lot of new things.
ねえねえ、ここに書いてある初プリって何？
She laughed when I asked that question too. More than anything else, she was a girl who laughed a lot, and the places I went with her were always glittering with vivid rainbows of light. When I went back home after we said goodbye, my room looked stale and dismal by comparison. It was like falling into a broken down, monochrome world. More and more, I spent my time impatiently counting down the hours until our next outing, wishing she'd swoop down and take me out of there. I remember getting off the train with her at some station I'd never visited before, and buying matching pencil boxes in a store I'd never known existed. After anguishing over my choice for dozens of minutes, I bought her a small hairpin as a present and got a pouch in return. We traded hair scrunchies, ate ice cream together. The days rolled by like one unbroken dream. Her email address and phone number were recorded in my cell phone. I was too scared to send her a message or dial her number, but for some reason, just looking at those characters on the screen would bring a smile to my face. One day, the two of us were on the rooftop after school, gazing leisurely out at the setting sun. The girl spoke to me in a quiet voice as the wind blew through her hair.
みちるは聞いてこないよね。
何が？
どうして飛び降りようとしてたかってこと。
She was always smiling, so I was taken aback to see her looking so serious all of a sudden. And more importantly, that completely unexpected question left me thoroughly flustered.
だって死にたかったんでしょ。それが全てじゃない。それ以上。
そりゃそうだね。飛び降りの理由なんてそれしかないもんね。ミチルは本当に変な子だ。
そうかな。そんなことないけど。
私はね、いろいろな人にいろいろなことを聞かれるんだ。進路がどう、彼氏がどう、バイトがどう、手の傷がどう、もうよくわかんないよ。もっとシンプルな世界で生きていたいと思う。
I didn't really understand what she was saying, so I listened very carefully. I hoped that if I listened carefully enough, I'd be able to pick up at least a little.
結局さ、人間って一人だよね。私のことを心から大事にしてくれる人なんてどこにもいないんだ。最後にはみんな消えていくよね。
I wanted to say it wasn't true, but I couldn't manage to speak.
嫌われたくないな。だったら先に私から嫌ってやりたい。私から先に。ごめんね。行かなきゃ。
うん。いってらっしゃい。
みちる。
何？
好きだよ。
With those words, she playfully pretended to kiss me on the cheek. My face went red as a lobster, and I made a strange little yes.
冗談。またね。
The evening sun was just sinking below the horizon as she left, still laughing. I just stood there for a while as darkness settled over the rooftop. That cell phone was always ringing. I didn't like it. Every time she was called off somewhere, she'd be quiet and subdued for a long time afterward. Her smiles looked forced. I was worried somebody might be doing cruel things to her, but I wasn't able to ask. Sometimes I noticed nasty bruises on her arms and legs, even her face every once in a while. She'd always just laugh it off. It's okay, I'm fine. Don't worry. I knew it wasn't okay at all. But I was afraid that asking her something would pop the bubble, destroy what we had, so I kept quiet. Even then, I knew I was being a coward. She had pulled me up from the bottom of the sea. Shouldn't I return the favor, take her hand like she did for me? The question tormented me for a very long time. But there was no way I could do what she had done. I was still a piece of trash. It was only thanks to her that I could laugh a little. It was only thanks to her that I found a little happiness. I couldn't allow myself to misunderstand. This was a temporary world, a dream I'd wake from eventually. Lingering alone on the roof, I gripped the cold metal handrail tightly. I still didn't have the courage to make the short journey to the other side of that fence. For a few days after answering that phone call, my friend didn't attend school. I was afraid something bad might have happened to her. Just like when I was a child, I knelt by my windowsill and whispered countless prayers.
神様、どうか守ってあげてください。今まで通り彼女が笑っていられるようにしてください。
I'm gonna stop it right there. I'll end at this point. She did have a friend. Well, bye.